What's going on, Nickelheads? GCam Gaming here with another LEGO Legacy Heroes Unboxed video for you. And today, I'm going to do it, you guessed it, something a little bit different. And as you know, when we do stuff a little bit different, it's a little bit sexy. That's right. I'm doing a beginner's guide. I don't know how useful that's going to be. I don't know how many new players are coming into the game, right? But I do know over the last few months, a lot of our viewership has been players on the newer end, right? Not really those same old veteran players. This game, basically the way of LEGO Legacy right now is out with the old, in with the new, which isn't really a great business model, but the game is really fun when you first start playing it. And they are pushing it out to new players. Like I see the ads on social media all the time. So I'm assuming that there are new players coming into the game, and this might be something to help them out. And perhaps down the line, those new players can be forever players. Because we do know our game has a problem right now with losing its veteran player base. But there's a lot that happened. I'm not blaming the dev team. It's not really in their control. But if you're a newer player and you're watching this, there is hope for your future, right? Because it's going to take you a few months to really get to where some veteran players are. Honestly, I've been playing the game over a year now. And I'm at a point where it's like, okay, I understand why people in my shoes are leaving. I'm not leaving the game. I don't look at it as my only game that I play. It is a fun game, and I love making content on it, and I love the community. So I'm gonna be here doing stuff, and I wanted to do a little beginner's guide series for you guys. So our first beginner's guide, I want to go over debuffs. That is right. So as you know, as a new player, right, and we'll do a little bit of a new player guide also, what you want to build, what you want to farm. But spoiler alert, you want to go after pirates because gold is kind of a bottleneck, and the the Pegledge treasure is a great way to get gold, and you're going to need pirates for that. Also, Master Wu is kind of a top 10 figure. Definitely you can get him at 6-star if you get your pirates high enough. Redbeard is free, right? You can only really get Redbeard tiles. I mean, they did offer some pay options for that, but really you get 3 Redbeard tiles every day for completing your dailies. And pirates are all about debuffs. There's other teams that revolve around debuffs. The new costume team definitely revolves around debuffs. It doesn't revolve around debuffs, but they do put out a lot of debuffs. And I feel like the spooky team also kind of revolves around debuffs. But pirates is going to be your main go-to. It'll help you in basically every aspect of the game. So I do want to go over some of these debuffs and just let you know what they do, which ones are good, and which ones are just aight. So let's start here with accuracy down 1 and accuracy down 2, right? So a lot of the debuffs in this game have a level 1 and a level 2, right? And a lot of what they do is a 20% for level 1 and a 30% for level 2. So level 1 accuracy down, it's going to decrease their accuracy by 20%. And accuracy down 2 is going to decrease their accuracy by 30%. These are really good debuffs because dodge and RNG are awful in this game. I feel like the only way you should miss an attack is if someone has dodge up or you have accuracy down. But this is really particularly good with Ninjago if you're running Nia, or Nia, however you pronounce it. I think it's Nia from what I remember in the show. But she does an AoE accuracy down, and then Lloyd gets dodge up if he's got Master Wu, and he becomes harder to hit. So this in conjunction, so you'll see like there's always like an opposite, like accuracy down's opposite is dodge up. And if you can get that buff on you while putting this debuff out, it makes for a really good synergy. Then we have basically the same thing with attack down 1 and attack down 2. Attack down 1, 20%. Attack down 2, 30%. Also really, really good because especially if you're working with tanky tanks like a Scarlet, a Super Wrestler, a Winston even. I got a 7-star Winston, come at me, bro. Right? Attack down is really going to make them last longer. It's another great way to kind of handicap your team, your opposing team, and make them hit a little less hard. Now we have one of the newer debuffs. It came out with the Space Reworks, Bricked. And I really like this debuff. Not a lot of units use it. I believe Jens uses it, Locust. I think one of the newer figures, one of the new costume figures use it. It's really, really a cool one, right? So damages this minifigure whenever they use a special or ultimate ability. So if they do something besides a basic, they're gonna take damage. This is So I like this, but it doesn't really deter the AI, right? So as a player, I might be like, all right, I'm going to go for the basic because I don't want to take the damage, right? But the AI is just going to take the damage. The problem is the damage is not that high amount of damage, and it doesn't deter the AI. So I wish it kind of deterred the AI from using its specials. But then it would kind of be like a disarm, but I don't know. I feel like if it was something that deterred the AI from using its specials, maybe it should be coded in the game that if the AI is 25% health or lower, they will not do anything but a basic with Bricked. I think that would make it a little bit better, but it is a really cool debuff and one of my favorite new ones that they've come out with. Next, we have Buff Immunity. Possibly the best debuff in the game. We know Garmadon puts it out with his basic. Nonsuch puts it out with his ultimate right there. And these are some sets that put out buff immunity. Basically, it prevents minifigures from gaining buffs. And why this is important is it prevents minifigures from taunting, right? So Basil can't taunt. Slimer can't go under stealth. Lloyd can't. Someone who has buff immunity can't be put under stealth by Lloyd. Scarlet doesn't taunt on her passive. Like, there's all these sorts of disruptive things you can do when buff immunity gets put on a team. So I really like buff immunity. Definitely my favorite of the debuffs. But the next one's a really good one too. Known for the Chicken Suit Ultimate, right, puts out Clumsy on people. And it guarantees the next attack from this minifigure will be a miss. And it clears after it's been triggered. So it's basically like the opposite of Dodgy, which is the buff, which we'll see that gives an automatic dodge. This is an automatic miss. And I love, love, love this debuff. But I don't love it in Brickspedition, where they decide on one of the hardest nodes of the map, they're going to start your whole team with Clumsy. That's challenging. It's not. It's just annoying, and then it's just annoying. But anyway, Clumsy, definitely a top 5 for my debuffs. I probably would say Buff Immunity and Clumsy are in my top 5. Now, the next is the most controversial of the debuffs. Confused, right? The new Corncob guy, Special 1, will deal his whole team Confusion after he does a big hit that also puts Debilitate. And what Confusion does is, it may cause this minifigure to attack someone other than the current target, right? So maybe it attacks a different opposing figure, maybe it attacks one of your own figures. I don't know. Do you know why? Because the game is bugged and Confusion has never once worked. The devs said to us, they said, yeah, you know, we know it doesn't work. We're going to fix it eventually. So basically what they're saying is, yeah, eventually there's going to be a bit of a nerf coming to Corncob Guy when we actually fix this debuff. If it worked, maybe it's one of the best debuffs in the game. I don't know. I've never seen it in action. It's not clear if you can attack your own minifigures with Confused. If it's just going to attack a random enemy, it's good, it's not great, but if you can attack if it's going to make you attack an ally, this could become a great debuff. Definitely could be in the top 5. Isn't right now. Then we have Crit Chance Down, 1 and 2. Again, 1 reduces by 20%, 2 reduces by 30%. That's okay. You know, crits stink. You don't want to keep getting crit, but I'll be honest, most of the crits that you're seeing are coming from either people have vulnerable or people have prepared in this game. So there's ways to make crits happen. Like, there's guaranteed ways to get crits, and this crit chance is really not going to hurt that much. Crits are always just a chance thing anyway, so this is not one of my favorite debuffs. But critical damage down, 1 and 2, same thing, 20 and 30%. This I like, because it's going to bring the damage down that those high critters do, right? So you got somebody like Hank the Castaway, he's a crit guy, right? So if I can bring his crit damage down, he's not going to be critting as hard. Slimer, when he's being run with Egon, crit guy, right? If you're facing Master Woos, it might help to have this critical damage down when everybody's going to get vulnerable put on them. It's not a top 5 for me, but it's definitely, it's a good one. I think it's better than Crit Chance Down. I think Crit Damage Down. I think that's going to bring less damage to the table. I like that. Now for one of the worst, Damage Over Time, right? So this Damages the minifigure per 3% of their max health at the start of their turn, and has a max of 5 stacks. So if you get all 5 stacks on, it can do 15% damage. It's not bad. It was good for a while at getting around, the fake death and Megistos Tower. It's just not it doesn't really do much, right? And there's not really a lot of ways to get those 5 stacks. Cactus Girl can do 2 to 3 stacks, but that's like, even if she gets all 3 stacks, that's only 9% for 1 or 2 turns. It's just not worth it for me. It's a nice little debuff. If you're working with somebody like Pirates where they're getting bonuses based on how many debuffs an enemy has on them, like somebody like Hank the Castaway, yeah, then it's a good one to have because it's a debuff period, but it's definitely not one of my favorites. Next is definitely in my top 5, along with Clumsy and Buff Immunity, Debilitate. Reduces the minifig's pep by 100% on the next successful hit against them. Clears after being triggered. I love Debilitate. If you're running a techie team, right, especially with Jay's Cyber Dragon, this Debilitate thing can be brutal because they have so many AoEs, and then they're proccing more hits from Jay, and then they're getting Debilitate, and then they're proccing the Debilitate. Debilitate is one of the most strategic debuffs in the game because you can really use it to suppress somebody like a Willa Basil combo or suppress a Master Wu. You know, it's great for suppression, especially with like the Egon's ultimate putting Debilitate on, and then you follow up with another AoE, basically making that the whole team can't go, that like it loses all their pep. It is a really, really good debuff, definitely in my top 5. And then we have Defense Down 1 and 2. Same as always, reduces defense by 20% and 30%. Love these debuffs, right? Makes enemies take more damage, especially when you're doing it with like a Master Wu comp. I say Master Wu a lot because he's so good, right? Where they're getting vulnerable and defense down, plus Ghost, I want to say he's newer, but he's really not newer. Ghost Basic puts defense down and then crits on anybody with defense down. So again, that's another way we said there's ways to get 100% crits. This is one of them. Defense down. Anytime you're reducing the main stats, attack and defense, or health or something, very, very good. Do I put defense down in my top 5? No, and you're going to see why, because there's 2 more that are going to go in my top 5 that are really good. And here is one of them. Disarmed. Prevents minifigures from using special or ultimate abilities. They can only use basic. So it's like Bricked, but instead of taking damage, they just can't use it. This could be the best debuff in the game, right? Made famous by Redbeard, right, for just getting all those bonus attacks and counters and just spreading out disarms. But honestly, Basil and Willa did some pretty dirty stuff with disarms too. I have lost matches simply because my team gets disarmed. It happens a lot. More against Spooky, I feel like, than Pirates, which doesn't really make much sense because Pirates are really all about the disarm, but it just, I think it affects more when you're facing a Spooky team. But this is a really good debuff. Probably the best one in the game, right? When we're thinking about, like, yeah, I think it's better than Debilitate. I think it's better than even Buff Immunity. But we'll see. Disarm definitely in my top 5 right now. And I have one more spot left in my top 5. We'll see what gets it. Next, we have Dizzy. Prevents minifigures from countering, assisting, doing bonus attacks, and increasing their pep. This one is very close to being in the top 5. I don't think I'm going to put it in the top 5, but this is definitely the most underrated, right? First off, there's huge synergies with the Chill team and Yeti and Zane with having Dizzy, right? So there's teams based around this debuff. So for that reason alone, it's a good debuff that it gives extra things to teams based around it. It also prevents countering. Great against Pirates, right? Also great against Castle and anybody who's using any type of payback. Great against Ninjago, right? Stopping countering is just a great thing. Especially if you're stopping countering, and then if they are countering and you're a Chill team, for instance, get a little bit of healing from Kelvin. Stops assisting, doing bonus attacks, so any type of bonus attacks. Another thing, if I put this on like Yuppie, his ultimate is now no longer going to be calling for any assist, I believe. No. sorry. If I have Dizzy on a figure and Yuppie does his ultimate, they will not be assisting. I think that's how it works. You could correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, someone, but it's definitely gonna hamper things like that. I believe that it will hamper anybody that, say you put it on Slimer, Gorwell cannot call Slimer for an assist anymore. It won't work, so you gotta call someone else. You're not getting hit with that 200% Slimer. Dizzy, definitely, I'm not sure. Maybe I'll put it in the top 5. I'm gonna say no right this second, but I'm gonna think about it as I'm doing this video, right? But it also stops units from increasing their pep, right? And there are teams that do a lot of things by manipulating their own pep. I'm looking at you, Techie, and I'm also looking at you, the new collectibles team, right? So this is a little bit of a soft counter to the collectibles, is Dizzy, not Digi. Then you have dodge down 1 and 2. You know what these 1 and 2s do. I like this because it makes certain figures a little less annoying, but I don't know. I feel like there shouldn't be so much RNG based in the game. I don't love it, but it does. It's nice to not miss. It makes the game a little less annoying, but it's not game breaking. The next one is Fear, and this is a confusing one. The less health the minifigure has, the lower their attack and critical chance stat are. I like that, and I've seen minifigures be really low on health and hit for like 700 damage because they have Fear on them. So I know that this is a good debuff. I can't put it in the top 5 because they've never given us any numbers or percentages of like, I want to know how low their attack is getting when they're at 10% health or at 1 HP left after a Hardy. So, you know, it is what it is. And then we've got Grit down 1 and 2. Grit, underrated, especially when you're talking about my guy Miner Clay, but this just is definitely not a top 10 debuff. Gonna bring Grit down by 20 and 30%. Then you have Heal Block 1 and 2. These are good, not top 5, and you're gonna see why in a second, right? Because there's also Heal Immunity. So Heal Block 1, 25%, blocks 25% of the health healed. Heal Block 2 blocks 50% of the health healed. Heal Immunity blocks 100% of the health healed. Now, this could be a top 5 debuff for me, but it is not very common, right? I know you get it from the Ghost Ultimate. I know Willa can put it out there. There's not a lot of ways to put Heal Immunity. I know Kartovsky puts Heal Block out there, but Heal Immunity, it's really powerful, but it's really not that common. And I don't think it's going to be in my top 5. But I'm going to put this next one in the top 5 over it. Even though it's not as common, I think it's actually a better ability. But you can argue that in the comments. Hero Passive Block. Prevents this minifigure's passive ability from triggering. So this is really good because there's so many good passive abilities, right? First off, there's passive abilities that just give stats, right? So you're taking that away. There's passive abilities that might give you stealth. There's passive abilities that cause people to taunt. There's passive abilities that buff other units, right? That cause you to get payback or something. There's just so many passive abilities that cause you to heal, right? If you could stop someone's passives are a really big part of what makes minifigures good. So I think it's a really good way to go after them. And I'm going to put Hero Passive Block in my top 5, but Dizzy and Heal Immunity are definitely right there at 6 and 7. They're really like 5A and 5B at that point. Then you have Max Health down 1 and 2. I actually really like these debuffs. Reduces max health by 10% and 20%. They're the only ones that are 10 and 20 and not 20 and 30. I do like that you could bring someone's max health down because really putting this debuff on them is like hitting them for 20% of their health. But you just have to kill them much quicker. And then we're talking about Overworked. This is a weird one because you only get it from your own allied Yuppie. Damages this minifigure by 5% of their max health at the start of their turn, and the damage dealt is non-lethal. I always thought that this was stupid, and honestly, that there's no one else putting this debuff out. Never a good idea to put debuffs on your own guys, but I don't know. I feel like what you're getting out of that Yuppie buff is just like didn't really call for also debuffing your, that really didn't feel like that was necessary. Then we got skill down 1 and skill down 2, a 20 and 31. Again, their skill down means they're putting out less debuffs and effects, but we don't really know how skill and grit works. So those are cool. Speed down 1, speed down 2, also really, really good. Making enemies slower is always going to make your team do better. And you see how really powerful this is with Slimer's AoE. And I'm actually, on this next one, I'm going to be removing Hero Passive Block from my top 5 because I completely forgot this debuff existed, but this is possibly the best debuff. Stun. It was always really good because especially it made Reed good because he had a guaranteed stun. It guarantees that this minifigure will miss their next turn. With Super Wrestler now putting it out on his basic and with Payback, stun is the best debuff in the game. Sorry, not sorry. Gotta put it in my top 5. So my top 5 were stun, disarm, debilitate, buff immunity, and what was my other one that I had in there? And clumsy. I think those are the top 5. But we're gonna look at a couple more good ones after stun that are pretty solid. Time bombs, definitely not a top 5, but really good. You only really get it from pirate figures. I know Governor puts it out with his special, and the pirates put it out with Forbidden Island. Damages his minifigure for 20% of their max health after a specific number of turns have passed. You could stack up time bombs, like up to 3 time bombs, and it'll do 60% damage to someone, so that's pretty good. The thing is, they usually get cleared before, they either get cleared or the figure dies before they go off, but in a war of attrition, pirates definitely have an advantage with that. And then vulnerable, definitely another one that was just on the cusp of being in my top 5. I can see this being in people's top 5. Guarantees that the next successful attack on this minifigure will be a critical. Clears after being triggered. Again, this is what makes Master Wu so good. He's putting vulnerable on people, and that brings the damage up. Anytime you get a guaranteed crit, that is always awesome. But yeah, those are the debuffs in LEGO Legacy Heroes Unboxed. And those are my top 5, right? I got stun, disarm, clumsy, debilitate, and buff immunity are going to be in my top 5. What are your top 5 debuffs? Let me know in the comments. Please remember to smash that like button, hit that subscribe button, ding that little bell for some notifications, and as always, remember to knuckle up.